Vigil, why are you calling me at the work again? Every time. Only on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. Hello. Hello. YouTube, first of all, I'm dreadfully sorry about missing Tuesday night's reading stream. It was planned. However, Tuesday night was also the launch of my Super Gay Pride merch, which is only available during June, and the hype got kind of out of hand over on Twitch. That's what happened. It's tube time. Yep. Oh, let me open up the chat docs in OBS so I can see them without craning my neck. That being said, I also am having some PC issues with my new PC. I've got to bring something in for a checkup. Anyways, the point is, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but there is a chance that I will not be able to multi-stream next week. Hopefully that won't be the case, but just telling you guys that to encourage you to, if you want to make sure not to miss any content, I will at least be going live over on Twitch. I just don't know if I'll be able to multi-stream. So, letting you guys know. Hola! Hello. And DJ and Cassiax. Artax and DJ. Thank you guys for watching over there. Thank you. Weo with the 215 streak. That's crazy. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, super duper gay merch. Yummy, thank you for the lurk. Good to see you. Okay, but this means that we have not read since Sunday, right? And we left at quite an exciting part. That is, they discovered a huge underground cavern, which is pretty exciting. They still haven't built a house yet. They've decided that a cavern would be better and have scoured the mysterious island for such a cavern. And they found one. It did involve blowing up a granite wall, possibly disturbing the ecosystem to an unknown degree, draining the lake partially, and finding the subterranean caverns through which that lake drained to the sea. And once these caverns were drained of water, because they created a whole new waterfall, these caverns are now empty and starting to dry out. And there's kind of a smaller one, and then you follow the trail more, and there's a massive one that sounds like a freaking cathedral inside. It sounds beautiful. And they started chipping away at one wall, and the back wall of it was only a few feet thick, and so they can actually create a window, a ventilation system. So yeah, I mean, it still seems to me like an inconvenient, you have to go in through a weird tunnel right above the water level of the lake. What if it rains a lot and the water level rises in the lake? It doesn't seem like a foolproof plan, but anyway, I guess they'll figure it out. Yeah, they love their pickaxing, they love their blasting, but Pencroff, the sailor, who all he wants is guns. Now that he's seen this nitroglycerin. Holy shit, that now he's just like, oh my god. Can we put this in a gun? Bro. Just learn how to hunt using other methods for now. Hi, Zen. Oh my goodness, how is she doing? That's why you're iffy about caves? Yeah, like, maybe if it's a cave that's higher than sea level, you know, that feels more comfortable. Well, I guess this isn't sea level, but water level. Like, the entrance was originally below the water level of the lake, and they created, like, a hole that was lower than that for the water to go out of. But flooding can still happen. I don't know. Nitroglycerin. Is this a gun? But it does sound like a cool cave, and definitely, even though I would still want to be building like an actually cozy, like, log cabin or something, I would still be stoked on finding the caves and the uses that can, yeah. Have I done any extraterrestrial reading of talks about what? Sorry, I'm not sure your question. Like, have we read any books about aliens? Or, no, Kizzy, you got the same name over there. Thank you so much for watching over there. Okay. Alright. Man, it's saying over on my horizontal one that the bit rate is lower than the recommended bit rate. I don't know why it started saying that. Anyway, open widget. I don't know. Anyway, okay. Now, as always, if you'd like to read along with me, if you're in YouTube chat, there's a pinned comment there. If you're watching the VOD later, the link is in the description box. And if you're over on Twitch, !book, and you will be able to download this in a variety of formats for free because it's in the public domain, or just open it in a browser tab and read along with me. Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Okay. Oh, let me twiddle with these. Okay, mic check. I lowered the gain a little bit, and did I lower it too much maybe? And I put it in cardioid mode, which I should have done at the very beginning of the YouTube stream, but I forget sometimes. Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Okay. All right. So, wait, we've read chapter 18. Okay, we've read chapter 18. Damn. Okay. Where did we end? Okay, we finished at chapter 18, so this should be, we're starting with chapter 19 tonight. Let's edit the title. 19, okay. Alright, alright. Okay, yes, they made it out at the end of the last chapter. They exited. Oh, the other weird thing is that the dog is picking up on something that the men are not. He keeps barking at something. So, Top knows something the humans do not. Okay. You got 69 and 666 on the tingles counter. Heck yeah. Nice. Okay. A manatee thing. Oh yeah. But then, but even after the manatee was killed, weirdly, in a weird way, they went into the caves and Tomp was barking as if something was in there. Oh, he would fuck Toto up. No competition. Saki, thank you for the resub. Happy Pride Month to you too, Saki. 22 months now. Thank you, Saki. How you doing? Okay. Good night, Ola. Good night. Okay. Chapter 19. On the next day, May 22nd, the colonists proceeded to take possession of their new abode. They longed to exchange their insufficient shelter for the vast retreat in the rock, impenetrable to wind and wave. Still, they did not intend altogether to abandon the chimneys, but to make a workshop of it. Smith's first care was to ascertain exactly over what point rose the face of Granite House. He went down on the shore to the foot of the immense wall, and as the pickaxe, which slipped from the reporter's hands, must have fallen perpendicularly, he could ascertain by finding this pickaxe the place where the granite had been pierced. And, in fact, when the implement was found, half buried in the sand, the hole in the rock could be seen 80 feet above it in a straight line. Rock pigeons were already fluttering in and out by this narrow opening. They evidently thought Granite House had been discovered for their benefit. Fucking pigeons, they're like, thanks for the new house. The engineer intended to divide the right portion of the cavern into several chambers, opening upon an entrance corridor, and lighted by 5 windows and a door cut in the face of the rock. Pencroff agreed with him as to the window, but could not understand the use of the door, since the old weir furnished a natural staircase to Granite House. "My friend," said Smith, "if we could get to our abode by the weir, so can others. I want to block up this passage at its mouth, to seal it hermetically, and even, if necessary, to conceal the entrance by damming up the lake." "And how shall we get in?" said the sailor. "By a rope ladder from the outside," answered Smith, "which we can pull up after us." "But why take so many precautions?" said Pencroff. "So far the animals we have found here have not been formidable, and there are certainly no natives." "Are you so sure, Pencroff?" said the engineer, looking steadily at the sailor. "Of course we shall not be perfectly sure till we've explored every part." "Yes," said Smith, "for we know as yet only a small portion. But even if there are no enemies upon the island, they may come from the outside, for this part of the Pacific is a dangerous region. We must take every precaution." "That's crazy, to climb up an 80-foot rope ladder every time you want to go home. That's a lot. That's a lot to ask. Again, that's why I would have, like, another, like, easier, more accessible house for day-to-day, and then have this for other stuff, yeah. What if they need to bring home something heavy? Yeah, you would keep fit. I feel like that's not going to be a concern for them. Living survival method on this island, I don't think they're going to get out of shape. Unless they fall from their 80-foot rope ladder, then their shape might be a bit broken. They're sure that pirates will come by, but also that no one will rescue them. I guess because it's outside of trade routes that, like, reputable ships would take. Alright, let's see. So, the facade of Granite House was lighted with 5 windows, and with a door opening upon the apartments and admitting plenty of light into that wonderful nave which was to serve as their principal hallroom. This facade, 80 feet above the ground, was turned to the east and caught the first rays of the morning sun. It was protected by the slope of the rock from the piercing northeast wind. In the meantime, while the sashes of the windows were being made, the engineer meant to close the openings with thick shutters, which could keep out wind and rain, and which could be readily concealed. The first work was to hollow out these windows, but the pickaxe was at a disadvantage among these hard rocks, and Smith again had recourse in the nitroglycerin, which, used in small quantities, had the desired effect. Then the work was finished by the pick and mattock. The 5 ogive windows, the bay, the bullseyes, and the door, and some days after the work was begun, the sun shone in upon the innermost recesses of Granite House. Hi, Bias. Yes, we've got some Super Gay merch going on right now. According to Smith's plan, the space had been divided into 5 compartments, looking out upon the sea. Upon the right was the hall, opposite the door from which the ladder was to hang. Then a kitchen, 30 feet long, a dining room, 40 feet long, a sleeping room of the same size, and last, a guest chamber, claimed by Pencroff, and bordering on the great hall. These rooms, or rather this suite of rooms in which they were to live, did not occupy the full depth of the cave. They opened upon a corridor which ran between them and a long storehouse, where they kept their utensils and provisions. All the products of the island, animal and vegetable, could be kept there in good condition and free from damp. They had room enough, and there was a place for everything. Moreover, the colonists still had at their disposal the little grotto above a large cavern, which would serve them as a sort of attic. This plan agreed on, they became brickmakers again, and brought their bricks to the foot of Granite House. Until that time, the colonists had access to the cavern only by the old weir. This mode of communication compelled them, first, to climb up Prospect Plateau. What? Bun? What the heck? What? Bun, thank you for the 20 gift subs. What? Holy moly. Thank you. Oh shit, that was very unexpected. Thank you so much. That's incredible. Man, thank you. Bun, if you are still around after we finish reading and we go back to doing ASMR, please feel free to let me know if there's a trigger that I can get for you at that time, okay? We pause the triggers during reading, but I would love to do something for you later if you're still around. Yeah, just dropping an unexpected sub bomb. That's crazy. Thank you. Okay. This mode of communication compelled them first to climb up Prospect Plateau, going round by the river, to descend 200 feet through the passage, and then to ascend the same distance when they wanted to regain the plateau. This involved fatigue and loss of time. Smith resolved to begin at once the construction of a strong rope ladder, which, once drawn up after them, would render the entrance to Granite House absolutely inaccessible. This ladder was made with the greatest care, and its sides were twisted of fibers by means of a shuttle. Thus constructed, it had the strength of a cable. The rungs were made of a kind of red cedar, with light and durable branches, and the whole was put together by the practiced hand of Pencroff, Oh, hell yeah, that would be very useful to have a sailor on staff making ropes. Dark Horse, thank you for the follow. Oh, Pious, thank you for watching over on YouTube. Thank you. I guess because someone was asking about like carrying heavy stuff up. I wouldn't be surprised if the engineer makes some kind of pulley system, and then they can, like, instead of carrying it up on their backs or whatever, they can just like lift like a net or a platform of something. Yeah. Hi Phoenix, good to see you. Another kind of tackle was made of vegetable fiber, and a sort of derrick was set up at the door of Granite House. In this way, the bricks could easily be carried to the level of Granite House, and when some thousands of them were on the spot, with abundance of lime, they began to work on the interior. They easily set up the wood partitions, and in a short time, the space was divided into chambers and a storehouse, according to the plan agreed upon. These labors went on quickly under the direction of the engineer, who himself wielded hammer and trowel. They worked confidently and gaily. Pencroff, whether carpenter, rope maker, or mason, always had a joke ready, and all shared in his good humor. His confidence in the engineer was absolute. All their wants would be supplied in Smith's own time. He dreamed of canals, of quarries, of mines, of machinery, even of railroads, one day to cover the island. The engineer let Pencroff talk. He knew how contagious is confidence. He smiled to hear him and said nothing of his own inquietude. But in his heart he feared that no help could come from the outside. In that part of the Pacific, out of the track of ships and at such a distance from other land that no boat could dare put out to sea, they had only themselves to rely upon. But, as the sailor said, they were far ahead of the Swiss Family Robinson, for whom miracles were always being wrought. In truth, they knew nature, and he who knows nature will succeed when others would lay down to die. Herbert especially distinguished himself in his work. He understood at a word and was prompt in execution. Smith grew fonder of him every day, and Herbert was devoted to the engineer. Pencroff saw the growing friendship, but the honest sailor was not jealous. Neb was courage, zeal, and self-denial in person. He relied on his master as absolutely as Pencroff, but his enthusiasm was not so noisy. The sailor and he were great friends. As to Spilett, well, his skill and efficiency were a daily wonder to Pencroff. He was the model of a newspaper man, quick alike to understand and to perform. The ladder was put in place May 28th. It was 80 feet high and consisted of 100 rungs, and profiting by a projection in the face of the cliff, about 40 feet up, Smith had divided it into two parts. This projection served as a sort of landing place for the head of the lower ladder, shortening it and thus lessening its swing. They fastened it with a cord so that it could easily be raised to the level of Granite House. The upper ladder they fastened at top and bottom. In this way, the ascent was much more easy. Besides, Smith counted upon putting up at some future time a hydraulic elevator, which would save his companions much fatigue and loss of time. The colonists rapidly accustomed themselves to the use of this ladder. The sailor, who was used to shrouds and ratlines, was their teacher. The great trouble was with Top, whose 4 feet were not intended for ladders. Oh yeah, the freaking dog. But Pencroff was persevering, and Top at last learned to run up and down as nimbly as his brothers of the circus. I'm sorry, what? They trained the dog to climb a ladder? We cannot say whether the sailor was proud of this pupil, but he sometimes carried Top up on his back, and Top made no complaints. He sometimes carried him on his back? So sometimes Top is climbing the ladder? What? Like, I know Top is like the goodest good boy, but like, that is very talented for a dog, right? Is anyone else feeling kind of like, okay, theoretically, they never get rescued. Theoretically, right? Poor Herbert. He's like, more than a decade, he's at least a decade younger than everyone else, possibly a couple decades younger. If everyone, like, unless there are accidents, they're all gonna die, and Herbert will just be a lonely old man on this island. Dogs can climb up ladders? Really? I know they can climb, like, more sloped ones, but, like, up a sheer cliff? This is like a straight granite wall. Hey, Jake. I guess we'll see. Fal, can you read me my anatomy textbook so you can learn while you sleep? Maybe. But not right now. It's not as sorry, the super gay granite wall. Alright. All this time, the question of provisions was not neglected. Every day, Herbert and the reporter spent some hours in the chase. They hunted only through Jacamar Woods, on the left of the river, for in the absence of boat or bridge, they had not yet crossed the Mersey. The immense woody tracts, which they had named the forests of the far west, were entirely unexplored. This important excursion was set apart for the first 5 days of the coming spring. But Jacamar Woods were not wanting in game. Kangaroos and boars were plenty there, and the iron-tipped spears, the bows and arrows of the hunters, did wonders. More than this, Herbert discovered, at the southwest corner of the lagoon. Sorry, this book has random, it feels like errors, commas put in very weird places. I'm gonna read that sentence again with better pacing. More than this, Herbert discovered at the southwest corner of the lagoon a natural warren, a sort of moist meadow covered with willows and aromatic herbs which perfumed the air, such as thyme, basil, and all sorts of mint, of which rabbits are so fond. The reporter said that when the feast was spread for them, it would be strange if the rabbits did not come, and the hunters explored the warren carefully. At all events, it produced an abundance of useful plants and would give a naturalist plenty of work. Herbert gathered a quantity of plants possessing different medicinal properties: pectoral, astringent, febrifuge, anti-rheumatic. When Pencroff asked what good were all this collection of herbs, "To cure us when we are sick," answered the boy. "Why should we be sick, since there are no doctors on the island?" said Pencroff, quite seriously. To this, no reply could be made, but the lad went on gathering his bundle, which was warmly welcomed at Granite House, especially as he had found some mountain mint, known in North America as Oswego tea, which produces a pleasant beverage. Oh, man. See, this island is crazy. They just found a freaking herb garden. Like, there's everything here. You can't have society without tea. No, you can't. No, it's impossible. They should call this Warren Scarborough Fair. They should. Yeah. That day, the hunters, in their search, reached the site of the warren. The ground was perforated with little holes, like a colander. "Burrows!" cried Herbert. "But are they inhabited?" That is the question. A question which was quickly resolved. Almost immediately, hundreds of little animals, like rabbits, took to flight in every direction with such rapidity that Top himself was distanced. But the reporter was determined not to quit the place till he had captured half a dozen of the little beasts. He wanted them now for the kitchen. Domestication would come later. With a few snares laid at the mouth of the burrows, the affair would be easy. But there were no snares, nor material for snares, so they patiently rummaged every form with their sticks until 4 rodents were taken. They were rabbits, much like their European congeners and commonly known as American hares. They were brought back to Granite Home. So isn't it Granite House? Is that an error, or is Granite Home a subsection of Granite House? They were brought back to Granite Home and figured in that evening's meal. Delicious eating they were, and the warren bade fair to be a most valuable reserve for the colonists. Aw, it's a home now, yeah. On May 31st, the partitions were furnished, and nothing remained but to furnish the room which would occupy the long days of winter. A chimney was built in the room which served as a kitchen. The construction of the stovepipe gave them a good deal of trouble. The simplest material was clay, and as they did not wish to have any outlet on the upper plateau, they pierced a hole above the kitchen window and conducted the pipe obliquely to this hole. No doubt during an eastern gale the pipe would smoke, but the wind rarely blew from that quarter, and head cook Neb was not particular. There's no period, so I'm hoping that is the end of that sentence. Vengeful, most likely it's that Verne, or the translator maybe, was trying to decide between them and just missed changing that instance. Okay. When these domestic arrangements had been made, the engineer proceeded to block up the mouth of the old weir by the lake, so as to prevent any approach from that quarter. Great square blocks were rolled to the opening and strongly cemented together. Smith did not yet attempt to put in execution his project of damming up the waters of the lake so as to conceal this weir. He was satisfied with concealing the obstruction he had placed there by means of grass, shrubs, and thistles, which were planted in the interstices of the rocks, and which, by the next spring, would sprout up luxuriantly. Meanwhile, he utilized the weir in conducting to their new abode a little stream of fresh water from the lake. A little drain, constructed just below its level, had the effect of supplying them with 25 or 30 gallons a day, so there was likely to be no want of water at Granite House. Well, that's clever. At last, all was finished, just in time for the tempestuous season. So, I think at the beginning of the chapter it said it was May 11th, and just at the beginning of that paragraph it was saying May 31st, and then it said some things after that. Yeah. So it's taken the better part of a month. It's taken about a month to get it all ready. You think they died in a balloon crash, and this is all the last firings of Smith's neurons drifting into his colonial fantasy. He is kind of the hero in this story, isn't he? I mean, they all are, but they all kind of view him as the main genius brain, so he's kind of the main character. All right. At last, all was finished, just in time for the tempestuous season. They closed the windows with thick shutters till Smith should have time to make glass from the sand. In the rocky projections around the windows, Spilett had arranged, very artistically, plants of various kinds and long, floating grasses, and thus the windows were framed picturesquely in green. The denizens of this safe and solid dwelling could but be delighted with their work. The windows opened upon a limitless horizon, shut in only by the two Mandible Capes on the north and by Claw Cape at the south. Union Bay spread magnificently before them. Now, they had reason enough to be satisfied, and Pencroff did not spare his praises of what he called his suite on the 5th floor. End of chapter. Okay. IMAX Raider. This is kind of a sequel, yeah. Although, so far nothing in it that has happened has pointed to it being a sequel. Apparently, it will become a sequel at some point, but it's a bit of a sequel to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Doesn't line up perfectly chronologically, but it is still considered a sequel, yes. Okay. The dog knows, and he's not telling. I don't know, do you think what Top is barking at, do you think it could be no one? Do you think it could be no one? Okay. Chapter 20. The winter season began in earnest with the month of June, which corresponded with December in our northern hemisphere. Showers and storms succeeded each other without an intermission, and the inmates of the granite house could appreciate the advantages of a dwelling impervious to the weather. The chimneys would indeed have proved a miserable shelter against the inclemency of the winter. They feared even lest the high tides driven by the sea wind should pour in and destroy their furnaces and their foundry. All this month of June was occupied with various labors, which left plenty of time for hunting and fishing, so that the reserve stock of food was constantly kept up. Pencroff intended, as soon as he had time, to set traps, from which he expected great results. He had made snares of ligneous fiber, and not a day passed but some rodent was captured from the warren. Neb spent all his time in smoking and salting meat. The question of clothes now came up for serious discussion. Crazy that it took them this long to get to clothes. Crazy. Anyway. Like, they have killed multiple animals by this time. They should have been, like, skinning them, tanning the hides should have been one of the first things they started doing. At this point, they would have a stack of hides. Do you know what I mean? Leather is too much work. And draining a lake and furnishing caves are not. Creating a forge to do ironsmithing is not a lot of work. Their clothes weren't threadbare yet. They can cure with the dog. They can do brain tanning. This is a disgusting but very interesting tidbit. First off, it did say earlier that there were tannins available. It did say that they would be able to use it for tanning hide. So they've got other things, but even in the absence of that, the tannins and chemicals that exist in any given animal's brain are the amount that you need to tan that same animal's hide. Very weird. I don't know the exact process for doing it. It does involve mashing up the brain, but you can technically use the brain to do it. Anyway. But it sounds like they've got like natural tannins, chemicals on the island with which to do it. Urine is used to dye cloth. I don't know if it was used to tan. I mean, maybe. I haven't heard that. It's definitely used for dyeing. You need to age the urine. And it's, used for setting different plant dyes. But something tells me that these men don't really care if their clothes are colorful. I don't know. Chicken poop was used to tan leather? I've never heard that. I didn't know that. Ironsmithing's an insane amount of work. Yeah, it was one of the first things they did. Crazy. Yeah. Absolutely wild. Wild priorities, but whatever. It's their survival mission. You've dyed a lot of clothes with urine. You're not allowed in many parts. That's crazy. They don't call you a soggy sheet stain for nothing. Hi, Skyor. Oh, sorry, Ellie. Yeah, sorry. Okay, let's move on from the brains and piss talk. It's just survival methods. It's just age-old ways of setting dye. No, piss was used for setting natural dyes for a long time. Like, up to fairly recently, like, given everything, yeah. Is it just you, or are gift subs 35% off? I believe they are. I believe gift subs are 35% off. Yep. Wait, are they all, or do you have to do a 5 bundle? Oh, it's all. All of them are 35% off. Shit. Usually when those deals come up, it's, you have to give 5, you know? But no, this is all of them. If you gift 35 of them, 10 of them are free. Yeah. Do it, Fidge. Wait, bits are too? Bits are on a deal? Really? I didn't see that. I'm not seeing that. Wait. I do have deals on bits, but it's, I think those are always there. Like, if you buy more, you get a deal, right? Are those always there? Fusca, welcome in. Thank you for the follow. Yeah, I can't remember if those deals are always there or not. Maybe they're not. Okay. Yeah, for me, I'm seeing, there's no deal if you buy 100 or 500. If you buy 1,500, you get 5% off. If you buy 5,000, you get 8% off. If you buy 10,000, you get 10% off. If you buy 25,000, you get 12% off. What kind of deals are those? Come on, man. You're seeing 30% off a pack of 300? Jesus, I would get that if I don't have that deal. That's a good one, because then you can hoard them and spend them later if you want, you know, like, that's a good deal. Banana, thank you for gifting a sub to Pay attention to me. Hi, Banana. Thank you. Thank you for the gift sub. Wait. That just kicked off a treasure train. And a treasure train means you save 35% on 5 or more gift subs. Do the deals stack? Does this deal stack? Like, if every gift sub is 35% off, if you gift 5 of them, do you get an extra 35% off the bundle of 5? Banana, thank you for the 5. Could you tell, Banana? Like, do you get a stacked deal? Thank you for those. If anything, it doubled it. Wait, what do you mean? That would be crazy if it stacked. Saki, thank you for the 5 gift subs. Gay reading. Yes, indeed. We are reading gift subs. Soggy, thank you. That's so kind of you. Oh my goodness. Yeah, are you able to tell? Figured I owed you for that last joke. Well, that's very sweet of you. I am genuinely curious, though, if that's stacking a deal. That's, like, not a situation I've come up against, though. So I don't know if Banana or Saki could tell. It does not stack. Okay. So it was just 35% off for the 5. Okay. Because that would be crazy. That would end up being like 70% off, which would be absolutely wild. You're seeing 28% off? Is that for the treasure train where it's like a 5 bomb, or is that off of all gift subs? Yeah, there's a, like, I'm just looking at my stream on the browser, and if you scroll down a bit, there's like a banner. Oh, on bits. Okay. Oh, 28%. Okay, see, I'm not getting those bits deals. I wonder if that's a regional thing. $35% off. Cupcake, is that for subs or bits? Yeah, I think... I wonder if the 35% off all gift subs, is that Twitch-wide? You have 12% off bits? Yeah, it's 35% off gift subs. And apparently the treasure train discount does not stack with the all gift subs deal that's going on right now. Which I imagine is Twitch-wide, but I don't know for sure. I only have 12% off bits if I get 25,000 of them, which would cost me $417. So I'm not going to be buying that. Artax, thank you for the 100 biddies, and Flossman for the 200 biddies reading bits. Yes, we will be returning right back to that, because as we know, I'm utterly illiterate and not... Wait, are you a librarian? Did I know that? That's so rad. I love librarians, everybody. Librarians are the best. They are the best. They're gonna save humanity. Yeah, terms apply. Yeah. Okay, well that's super rad. Hey Star Guys, thank you for the 100 biddies. Happy Pride. You got your library card this morning? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Floral, thank you for the gift sub to Librarian. And Fidge for the 10 gift subs. What the heck? Fidgy? Wait, one of the people... And when you give out bundles like that, like they're all random, one of the users that got gifted is named Madam Book. hope they come in and say hi. Very interested to meet Madam Book. You wanted to be one since you were about 5? Hell yeah! Life goal completed. Nice. Hi, Sierra. It's good to see you. How you doing? You guys. Well, thank you. Very, very sweet and very generous of you guys. All right. Heck yeah, super gay merch. All right. If only these colonists had access to my super gay merch. Because the question of clothes now came up for serious discussion. If only they could have a gay panic or gay awakening shirt. They would have been set up for life. Because there aren't a lot of other options on this island. Oh my god, Banana! Banana! Thank you for the 20 gift subs! What the heck? What the heck? Oh my god. What? You guys. Okay, this is actually crazy. Thank you. Oh my god, wait, this is actually so appreciated because I'm probably gonna have to buy a new GPU. Thank you so much. Artax, thank you for those 200 biddies. Oh my god. Yes, over in YouTube, that is the link to the shop. Once I hit the first level of the YouTube partner program, I will be able to officially link my shop with my YouTube channels. But for now, there is the link. You also need a new GPU? Dude, when I started streaming, I was using maybe a 1070 or 10 something. They burn out after a few hundred books. Hi, Gentle Tap. Hello. I mean this in the nicest way possible, but it will be in Aussie slang. Get a sub up ya. Up who now? Man. Yeah, I think when I started streaming I was using like a 1050 maybe. And it worked for like the first at least like year and a half, right? Maybe a couple years. It sounds crude. I mean, it's Aussie slang. Does chatting help the algorithm? Zachary, the algorithm is a weird and wily beast, so I can never say for sure, but I think so. I think so. But I don't know for sure. So, it definitely can't hurt. That's true. Yeah. I know that leaving comments under VODs does help. Or at least I believe so. Again, I should never say anything definitively. I am probably... Would you like one of my 50/90? I mean, Crafty, I'm gonna go down to the shop in person tomorrow. I'm gonna bring this one in. I'm gonna talk to them about it, and then formulate a plan. That's incredibly sweet of you, Crafty. Because I don't know what the deal is with this one. It is like theoretically good enough. It's theoretically good, but it's obviously causing issues. Nobody knows. Yeah, it's a very mysterious algorithm. I do understand why people shit on Twitch for like not having discoverability, not having an algorithm, but like at least it's not a mystery. Do you know what I mean? Like it's, you can understand how it works. I've also like, YouTube feels very much like you're an island in the middle of the Pacific where Twitch feels like you're part of a bunch of little islands, and you make friends with them, and you sail your little ship of people over to their island, and they sail their ship of people over to your island, and you create a thriving community between islands. Gotta head off to the pub for a pint and smash a pint. Hell yeah, banana! Getting super Aussie there. Bye, banana. Thank you so much, banana. Have a good time. Will you? Thank you for the 100 biddies. Happy Pride. Happy Pride. Oh my goodness. Alright. Holy moly. We're working on a level 8 hype train there. Wait, does that mean have we unlocked the emu emote? I think that unlocks the emu emote, which I don't have yet, so that's exciting. Huzzah! You guys, thank you. Yes, I did get the emu. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. You guys, thank you for that incredible hype train. That was thank you so much. It's so appreciated. So appreciated. Hi, Enko. You're genuinely wonderful. The Great Emu Wars have begun. Yeah, I think the only one I don't have from the new set is the frog. I've got the fish and the cow and the emu now. I think I still need the frog, which I think is like a level 3? 2 or 3? 2? I don't know. So, still need to get that one. Thank you guys so much. Ugh, you're all wonderful. Anyone who was a part of that hype train, feel free to put in a request for a name trace or a trigger. I mean, use your noggin. If you gifted, you know, a 5 bomb or bigger, like you can ask for a whole 5-minute trigger, you know, like ask for a trigger or name, whatever you want. You can put it in the queue now, and we will get to that queue once we're done reading. Thank you again. Thank you again. Thank you again. Okay. Let's see what they do for clothes. The question of clothes now came up for serious discussion. The colonists had no other garments than those which they wore when the balloon cast them on shore. These, fortunately, were warm and substantial, and, by dint of extreme care, even their linen had been kept clean and whole. But everything would soon wear out, and, moreover, during a vigorous winter, they would suffer severely from cold. Here, Smith was fairly baffled. He had been occupied in providing for their most urgent wants, food and shelter, and the winter was upon them before the clothes problem could be solved. They must resign themselves to bear the cold with fortitude, and, when the dry season returned, would undertake a great hunt of the mouflon, which they had seen on Mount Franklin, and whose wool the engineer could surely make into warm, thick cloth. He would think over the method. That's right, there are these mountain sheep, so they don't just have to use leather. I mean, like I said, they're sitting pretty. What I would do is take all the linen clothes that they came with and turn that all into underwear. And then use the leather and wool to make new outer clothes. You don't want leather or wool undies. Except for special occasions. Well, we must toast ourselves before the fire, said Pencroff. There's plenty of firewood. No reason for sparing it. Besides, added Spilett, Lincoln Island is not in very high latitude, and the winters are probably mild. Did you not say, Cyrus, that the 35th parallel corresponded with that of Spain in the other hemisphere? Yes, said the engineer, but the winter in Spain is sometimes very cold, with snow and ice. We may have a hard time of it. Still, we are on an island and have a good chance for more moderate weather. Why, Mr. Smith? Said Herbert. Because the sea, my boy, may be considered as an immense reservoir in which the summer heat lies stored. At the coming of winter, this heat is again given out, so that the neighboring regions have always a medium temperature, cooler in summer and warmer in winter. We shall see, said Pencroff. I'm not going to bother myself about the weather. One thing is certain. The days are getting short already and the evenings long. Suppose we talk a little about candles. Nothing's easier, said Smith. To talk about? Asked the sailor. To make. And when shall we begin? Tomorrow, by a seal hunt. What? To make dips? No, indeed, Pencroff. Candles. Such was the engineer's project, which was feasible enough as he had lime and sulfuric acid, and as the amphibia of the island would furnish the necessary fat. It was now the 4th of June, and Pentecost Sunday, which they kept as a day of rest and thanksgiving. They were no longer miserable castaways. They were colonists. Didn't they decide that, like, weeks ago? He is calling the seals pudgy, yeah. On the next day, June 5th. Dude, this is lining up with the current date. That's crazy. On the next day, June 5th, they started for the islet. They had to choose the time of low tide to ford the channel, and all determined that somehow or other they must build a boat which would give them easy communication with all parts of the island and would enable them to go up the Mersey when they should undertake that grand exploration of the southwestern district which they had reserved for the first good weather. Seals were numerous, and the hunters, armed with their iron-spiked spears, easily killed half a dozen of them, which Neb and Pencroff skinned. Only the hides and fat were carried back to Granite House, the former to be made into shoes. The result of the hunt was about 300 pounds of fat, every pound of which could be used in making candles. The operation was simple enough, and the product, if not the best of its kind, was all they needed. Had Smith had at his disposition nothing but sulfuric acid, he could, by heating this acid with neutral fats, such as the fat of the seal, separate the glycerin, which again could be resolved by means of boiling water, into oleine, margarine, and stearine. But, to simplify the operation, he preferred to saponify the fat by lime. He thus obtained a calcareous soap, easily decomposed by sulfuric acid, which precipitated the lime as a sulfate and freed the fatty acids. The first of these three acids, oleine, margarine, and stearine, was a liquid which he expelled by pressure. The other two formed the raw material of the candles. In 24 hours the work was done. Wicks were made, after some unsuccessful attempts, from vegetable fiber, and were steeped in the liquid compound, in the liquefied compound. They were real stearine candles, made by hand, white and smooth. Enco, aw, thank you for watching over on YouTube. Hope you're very cozy. This is more complicated than I thought he was going to make it. I mean, probably it's going to burn a lot cleaner, but you don't need to go through this whole process to make candles. Like animal fat can work. During all this month work, Oh wait, during all this month, work was going on inside their new abode. There was plenty of carpenter's work to do. They improved and completed their tools, which were very rudimentary. Scissors were made, among other things, so that they were able to cut their hair and, if not actually to shave their beards, at least to trim them to their liking. Herbert had no beard, and Neb none to speak of, but the others found ample employment for the scissors. They had infinite trouble in making a handsaw, but at last succeeded in shaping an instrument which would cut wood by a rigorous application. Then they made tables, chairs, and cupboards to furnish the principal rooms, and the frames of beds whose only bedding was mattresses of rack grass. The kitchen, with its shelves on which lay the terracotta utensils, its brick furnace, and its washing stone, looked very comfortable, and Neb cooked with the gravity of a chemist in his laboratory. But joiner's work had to give place to carpentry. The new weir created by explosion rendered necessary the construction of 2 causeways, one upon Prospect Plateau, the other on the shore itself. Now, the plateau and the coast were transversely cut by a watercourse, which the colonists had to cross whenever they wished to reach the northern part of the island. To avoid this, they had to make a considerable detour, and to walk westward as far as the sources of Red Creek. Their best plan, therefore, was to build 2 causeways, one on the plateau and one on the shore, 20 to 25 feet long, simply constructed of trees squared by the axe. This was the work of some days. When these bridges had been built, Neb and Pencroff profited by them to go to the oyster bed, which had been discovered off the down. They dragged after them a sort of rough cart, which had taken the place of the inconvenient hurdle, and they brought back several thousand oysters, which were readily acclimated among the rocks, and formed a natural preserve at the mouth of the Mersey. They were excellent of their kind and formed an almost daily article of diet. In fact, Lincoln Island, though the colonists had explored but a small portion of it, already supplied nearly all their wants, while it seemed likely that a minute exploration of the western forests would reveal a world of new treasures. Only one privation still distressed the colonists. Exotic food they had in plenty, and the vegetables which corrected it, from the ligneous roots of the dragon trees, submitted to fermentation, they obtained a sort of acidulated beer. They had even made sugar, without sugarcane or beetroot, by collecting the juice which distills from the Acer saccharinum, a sort of maple which flourishes in all parts of the temperate zone, and which abounded on the island. They made a very pleasant tea from the plant brought from the warren, and finally, they had plenty of salt, the only mineral component necessary to food. But bread was still to seek. Perhaps at some future time, they would have been able to replace this ailment by some equivalent, sago flower or the breadfruit tree, which they might possibly have discovered in the woods of the southwest, but so far they had not met with them. Just at this time, a little incident occurred which brought about what Smith, with all his ingenuity, could not have achieved. One rainy day, the colonists were together in the large hall of Granite House, when Herbert suddenly cried, "See, Mr. Smith, a grain of corn!" And he showed his companions a single gram, which had got into the lining of his waistcoat through a hole in his pocket. Pencroff had given him some ring-doves in Richmond, and in feeding them, one of the grains had remained in his pocket. "A grain of corn," said the engineer quickly. "Yes, sir, but only one." "That's a wonderful help," said Pencroff, laughing. "The bread that grain will make will never choke us." Oh, I think that was supposed to be sarcastic. Well, that's a wonderful help, said Pencroff, laughing. The bread that grain will make will never choke us. Herbert was about to throw away the grain when Cyrus Smith took it, examined it, found that it was in good condition, and said quietly to the sailor, Pencroff, do you know how many ears of corn will spring from one grain? One, I suppose, said the sailor, surprised at the question. 10, Pencroff. And how many grains are there to an ear? Faith, I don't know. 80 on an average, said Smith. So then, if we plant this grain, we shall get from it a harvest of 800 grains. From them, in the second year, 640,000. In the third, 512 million. In the fourth, more than 400 billion. That is the proportion. His companions listened in silence. The figures stupefied them. Yes, my friend, resumed the engineer, such is the increase of nature. And what is even this multiplication of a grain of corn whose ears have only 800 grains, compared with the poppy plant, which has 32,000 seeds, or the tobacco plant, which has 360,000? In a few years, but for the numerous enemies which destroyed them, these plants would cover the earth. And now, Pencroff, he resumed, do you know how many bushels there are in 400 billion grains? No, answered the sailor. I only know that I'm an idiot. Well, there will be more than 3 million at 130,000 the bushel. 3 millions, cried Pencroff. 3 millions in 4 years. Yes, said Smith, and even in 2, if, as I hope, we can get 2 harvests a year in this latitude. Pencroff answered with a tremendous hurrah. So, Herbert, added the engineer, your discovery is of immense importance. Remember, my friends, that everything may be of use to us in our present situation. Oh, indeed, Mr. Smith, I will remember it, said Pencroff. And if ever I find one of those grains of tobacco which increase 360,000 times, I'll take care not to throw it away. And now, what must we do? We must plant this grain, said Herbert. Yes, added Spilett, and with the greatest care, for upon it depend our future harvests. Provided that it grows, said the sailor. It will grow, answered Smith. It was now the 20th of June, a good time for planting the precious grain. They thought at first of planting it in a pot, but upon consideration they determined to trust it frankly to the soil. The same day it was planted with the greatest precaution. The weather clearing a little, they walked up to the plateau above Granite House, and chose there a spot well sheltered from the wind, and exposed to the midday fervor of the sun. The spot was cleared, weeded, and even dug, so as to destroy insects and worms. It was covered with a layer of fresh earth, enriched with a little lime. A palisade was built around it, and then the grain was covered up in its moist bed. I have to say, I didn't know that 1 grain of corn would produce 10 stalks of corn. Or, no wait, 1 stalk, 10 ears on a stalk? Is that what he's saying? 1 stalk, but several ears per stalk? That's actually crazy. Yeah, I do feel like his numbers are representing, like, the best case scenario. But, if they get anything from it, that's still amazing. It's closer to 3 to 4. Yeah, 10 seems like a lot, but I know nothing about farming corn, so 4 or 5 years each is good. Don't you need male and female plants? I don't know. I don't know. Wait, what the heck? Wait. Over in the YouTube chat, I didn't post that. Why does it say that I posted that? What? Wait. How is that happening? I mean, I'm not upset about it, but I don't know how that's... Ghost post? It says that it's from me. I didn't do that. Hi, Scott. Do we need to be wary of your psychic powers? I mean, always, yeah. Always. Ghosts. Automatic bot? Yeah, but I didn't think I had one set up. Anyway. Just cool, I guess. Check out the Pride March. The emotes don't work on YouTube, so that's an awkward looking message. Okay. Well, I did link up one of my bot. I did link the Thad bot up, although it's posting as me and not Thaddeus, because Thaddeus is a Twitch thing. I did link it up, but I didn't think it was like actually set up to work. I just literally linked the channel, and then I posted in the Mix It Up Discord, and I said, hey, I have more than one YouTube channel, but I only see a way to like link it to one YouTube channel. Can I link it to both? And no one answered. Hey, good fellow. Apparently it works, but it's not posting all of the messages, just that one. So, oh well, cool. I guess I'll look more into it. Wait, yeah. Dude, the YouTube messages are coming up on Mix It Up bot in the chat. That's great. Okay, well this is good, but I just need to set it up better. Oh. You're not scared of my psychic powers? Yet. All you did was figure out if an apple was ripe or not? Never trust an apple from a witch. Okay. Let's read a bit more. This is very exciting for them though. Damn, cornbread is so tasty too. Okay. They seem to be laying the cornerstone of an edifice. Pencroff was reminded of the extreme care with which they had lighted their only match. But this was a more serious matter. The castaways could always have succeeded in obtaining fire by some means or other, but no earthly power could restore that grain of corn if, by ill fortune, it should perish. End of chapter. I have a really bad habit of stopping to chat, not realizing there's only like a paragraph left in the chapter. Oh yeah, they haven't found honey, but that's very possible that they will find honey, which would also give them better candles if they find some bees. Artex, thank you for the 100 biddies. Most species of corn are both male and female. The male part, the tassels, are at the top of the stalk, and the female parts are located at each ear of the corn. Once fertilized, the kernels develop. Oh, cool. They have made beer. Or a kind of beer, it sounds like. This is Minecraft, I swear. Yeah, I've never played Minecraft, but it does feel like survival adventure. But like in a really blessed environment. Like it's just got everything they need. Yeah. Okay. Let's read another chapter, shall we? Chapter 21. From this moment, Pencroff did not let a day pass without visiting what he called, with perfect gravity, his cornfield. And alas, for any insects that ventured there, no mercy would be shown them. Near the end of the month of June, after the interminable rains, The weather became decidedly cold, and on the 29th, a Fahrenheit thermometer would certainly have stood at only 20 degrees above zero. Can anyone tell me what that is in Celsius? I know that's below freezing, right? Doesn't Fahrenheit hit freezing at like 35, or am I hallucinating that? It's like -10? Okay. See, and they still haven't freaking... Have they made blankets? Do they have animal hides? Do they have furs? Their priorities are so crazy to me. Crazy to me. -6? Oh, that's... I mean, that's cold, but that's not, like, crazy cold. But yeah, okay. I think Keaton, because he has used both centigrade and Fahrenheit, I think on the one hand these characters are Americans, on the other hand they're scientists, or at least one of them is, and even in the US of A, you guys still use like metric and centigrade for sciencey things, don't you? Canadian says -6 isn't cold. I mean, I'm not saying it's not cold, I'm just saying it's not like crazy cold. Okay. The next day, the 30th of June, the day which corresponds to the 31st of December, in the Northern Hemisphere, was a Friday. Neb said the year ended on an unlucky day, but Pencroff answered that, consequently, the new year began on a lucky one, which was even more important. At all events, it began with a very cold snap. Ice accumulated at the mouth of the Mersey, and the whole surface of the lake was soon frozen over. Fresh firewood had continually to be procured. Pencroff had not waited for the river to freeze to convey enormous loads of wood to their destination. The current was a tireless motor, and conveyed the floating wood until the ice froze around it. To the fuel, which the forest so plentifully furnished, were added several cartloads of coal, which they found at the foot of the spurs of Mount Franklin. The powerful heat from the coal was thoroughly appreciated, in a temperature which on the 4th of July fell to 8 degrees above zero. A second chimney had been set up in the dining room, where they all worked together. During this cold spell, Cyrus Smith could not be thankful enough that he had conducted to Granite House a small stream of water from Lake Grant, taken below the frozen surface, then conducted through the old... Sorry. I think like a fruit fly just flew at my nose. That was crazy. Did anyone see that? That was crazy. I just got attacked in the face. I don't think it went up my nose. What the hell? Ah. Okay. That was so alarming. That was crazy. It attacked me. Canadian's crazy. -6 ain't cold and sniffs flies. I'm not sniffing flies. Girl, get it together. I'm not trying. It's not my fault. I didn't encourage it. I didn't lay out a welcome mat. Battle Aiden, thank you. Thank you for the resub. Oh my goodness. Thank you. I'm not on flies. Oh my god. Crazy. Okay. Battle Aiden, thank you. Okay, let's try this again. Sorry about that. No way, DJ. That's... Oh my god. 5 months subbed at Faolkor the Fly Sniffer. No, okay. It was not an intentional thing. Okay. taken below the frozen surface, then conducted through the old weir, it arrived unfrozen at the interior reservoir, which had been dug at the angle of the storehouse and which, when too full, emptied itself into the sea. About this time, the weather being very dry, the colonists, dressing as warmly as possible, determined to devote a day to the exploration of that part of the island situated to the southeast, between the Mersey and Claw Cape. It was a large, swampy district and might offer good hunting, as aquatic birds must abound there. They would have 8 or 9 miles to go and as far to return. Consequently, the whole day must be given up. As it concerned the exploration of an unknown portion of the island, everyone had to take part. Therefore, on the 5th of July, at 6 o'clock in the morning, before the sun had fairly risen, the whole party, armed with spears, snares, bows, and arrows, and furnished with enough provisions for the day, started from Granite House, preceded by Top, who gamboled before them. They took the shortest route, which was to cross the Mersey on the blocks of ice, which then obstructed it. But, as the reporter very truly observed, this cannot supply the place of a real bridge. So, the construction of a real bridge was set down as work for the future. This was the first time that the colonists had set foot on the right bank of the Mersey, and had plunged into the forest of large and magnificent firs, then covered with snow. But they had not gone half a mile when the barking of Top frightened from a dense thicket, where they had taken up their abode, a whole family of quadrupeds. "What, they look like foxes," said Herbert, when he saw them scampering away. And they were foxes, but foxes of enormous size. They made a sort of bark which seemed to astonish Top, for he stopped in his chase and gave these swift animals time to escape. The dog had a right to be surprised, for he knew nothing of natural history, but by this barking, the grayish-red color of their hair and their black tails, which ended in a white tuft, these foxes had betrayed their origin. So Herbert gave them, without hesitation, their true name of Culpeau. Culpeau. Oh. I'm guessing that's the French spelling of Culpio. Culpio? Yes, because I typed in... So the way it's spelled in the book is Culpeux, which is like a plural form ending in French. And all the websites it's giving me are in French. But yes, it is a type of Reynald, type of fox. Okay. Chimpy, thank you for the follow. Welcome. FOUS's. Yes. I wonder why that word wasn't translated. Like, this book was originally written in French, but I wonder why Culpeau was not translated. Hey CS, 5.5 more hours of hell in work. Then you can drink yourself into a coma for the weekend. I mean, don't go as hard as a coma. You know, sure, have a drink to relax. Maybe no comas, but you can do it. You can do it. You can get through work. I believe in you. You're trying to nap on a bus, Muse? Aw, how much longer do you have on the bus? Okay, let's see. You'd like to order one coma, please? Best I can do is a comma. This book has a lot of extra ones where they shouldn't be. It's crazy. I don't know why there are so many commas in this. Like, they're just in the middle of sentences in weird places where they don't belong. Okay. So Herbert gave them, without hesitation, their true name of Culpeau. These culpo are often met with in Chile, in the St. Malo group, and in all those parts of America lying between the 30th and 40th parallels. Herbert was very sorry that Top had not caught one of these carnivora. "Can we eat them?" asked Pencroff, who always considered the fauna of the island from that special point of view. "No," said Herbert, "but zoologists have not yet ascertained whether the pupil of the eye of this fox is diurnal or nocturnal, or whether the animal would come under the genus canine." Smith could not help smiling at this remark of the boy, which showed thoughtfulness beyond his years. As for the sailor, from the moment these foxes ceased to belong to the edible species, they ceased to interest him. Ever since the kitchen had been established at Granite House, he had been saying that precautions ought to be taken against these four-footed plunderers, a fact which no one denied. Having turned Jetsam Point, the party came along a long reach washed by the sea. It was then 8 o'clock in the morning. The sky was very clear, as is usual in prolonged cold weather, but warmed by their work, Smith and his companions did not suffer from the sharpness of the atmosphere. Besides, there was no wind, the absence of which always renders a low temperature more endurable. The sun, bright but cold, rose from the ocean, and his enormous disk was poised in the horizon. The sea was a calm, blue sheet of water, like a landlocked sea under a clear sky. Claw Cape, bent in the shape of an atagan, was clearly defined about 4 miles to the southeast. To the left, the border of the swamp was abruptly intercepted by a little point which shone brightly against the sun. Certainly in that part of Union Bay, which was not protected by the open sea, even by a sandbank. I'm reading this all wrong. Sorry, guys. Certainly in that part of Union Bay, which was not protected from the open sea, even by a sandbank, ships beaten by an east wind could not have found shelter. By the perfect calm of the sea, with no shoals to disturb its water, by its uniform color, with no tinge of yellow, and finally, by the entire absence of reefs, they knew that this side was steep, and that here the ocean was fathoms deep. Behind them, in the west, at a distance of about 4 miles, they saw the beginning of the forests of the far west. They could almost have believed themselves upon some desolate island in the Antarctic regions, surrounded by ice. The party halted here for breakfast. A fire of brushwood and seaweed was lighted, and Neb prepared the meal of cold meat, to which he added some cups of Oswego tea. While eating, they looked around them. This side of Lincoln Island was indeed barren, and presented a strong contrast to the western part. The reporter thought that if the castaways had been thrown upon this coast, they would have had a very melancholy impression of their future home. "I do not believe we could even have reached it," said the engineer, "for the sea is very deep here. There's not even a rock which would have served as a refuge. Before Granite House there were shoals, at least, and a little island which multiplied our chances of safety. Here is only the bottomless sea." "It is curious enough," said Spilett, "that this island, relatively so small, presents so varied a soil. That's what I'm saying, yeah. This diversity of appearance belongs, logically, only to continents of a considerable area. One would really think that the western side of Lincoln Island, so rich and fertile, was washed by the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, and that the northern and southern coasts extended into a sort of Arctic Sea." "You're right, my dear Spilett," replied the engineer. "I've observed the same thing. I've found this island curious both in its shape and in its character. It has all the peculiarities of a continent, and I would not be surprised if it had been a continent formerly." "What? A continent?" in the middle of the Pacific?" cried Pencroff. "Why not?" answered Smith. "Why should not Australia, New Ireland, all that the English geographers call Australasia, joined to the archipelagos of the Pacific Ocean, have formed in times past a sixth part of the world as important as Europe or Asia, Africa, or the two Americas?" Sorry. Did New Zealand used to be called New Ireland? Or is New Ireland another island around there? Because Zealand, like Old Zealand, isn't that in Scotland? I'm actually forgetting. Anyway. My mind does not refuse to admit that all the islands rising from this vast ocean are the mountains of a continent now engulfed, but which formerly rose majestically from these waters. "Like Atlantis?" asked Herbert. "Yes, my boy, if that ever existed." New Ireland is a large, long, and narrow island located in the Bismarck Archipelago northeast of Papua New Guinea, with an estimated population of 120,000. It is most well known for its pristine white sand beaches, world-class diving, and traditional Malayan culture. Oh, so it's still New Ireland. He was writing this decades before continental drift was even a theory. Hell yeah, Verne. Old Zealand's in the Netherlands. Okay, so I was wrong about that. Now, we also know that in the Jules Verne literary universe, Atlantis is real. Because in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Nemo takes our main character on a little under the sea walk to Atlantis. They go to Atlantis. So, in this literary universe, Atlantis is real. But these guys don't know that. "And Lincoln Island may have been a part of this continent?" asked Pencroff. "It is probable," replied Smith. "And that would explain the diversity of products upon the surface, and the number of animals which still live here," added Herbert. Oh no, wait, sorry, that's Herbert. "And that would explain the diversity of products upon the surface, and the number of animals which still live here," added Herbert. "Yes, my boy," answered the engineer. "And that gives me a new argument in support of my theory. It is certain, after what we have seen, that the animals in the island are numerous, and what is more curious is that the species are extremely varied. There must be a reason for this, and mine is that Lincoln Island was formerly a part of some vast continent, which has, little by little, sunk beneath the surface of the Pacific." "Then," said Pencroff, who did not seem entirely convinced, "what remains of this old continent may disappear in its turn, and leave nothing between America and Asia." "Yes," said Smith, "there will be new continents, which millions upon millions of animalculae are building at this moment." "And who are these masons?" inquired Pencroff. "The coral insects," answered Smith. "It is these who have built by their constant labor the island of Clermont-Tonnerre, the atolls, and many other coral islands which abound in the Pacific. It takes about 47 million of these insects to deposit one particle, and yet with the marine salt which they absorb and the solid elements of the water which they assimilate, these animalculae produce limestone, and limestone forms these enormous submarine structures whose hardness and solidity is equal to that of granite. Formerly, during the first epochs of creation, nature employed heat to produce land by upheaval, but now she lets these microscopic insects replace this agent, whose dynamic power at the interior of this globe has evidently diminished. This fact is sufficiently proved by the great number of volcanoes actually extinct on the surface of the earth. I verily believe that century after century and infusoria after infusoria will change the Pacific someday into a vast continent which new generations will, in their turn, inhabit and civilize. I'm Bath Salts. Hi, welcome in. How you doing? Thank you for the raid. How's it going? What were you streaming? This was like a century before drift theory. Yeah, I mean, look, Jules Verne had some awesome ideas. He just explains them ad nauseum, but very, very cool ideas. He wasn't terribly off when it came to choral. Yeah, no, he was a smart cookie, for sure. Keeping it street? Wait, what does that mean? Were you playing, like, Forza or something? Oh, ASMR biking? Wait, really? Like, actually biking? Out in the wild on your bike? That's pretty rad. So that's really interesting. I mean, obviously this is just one character's hypothesis, but we have commented that it's interesting that, like, there are all these different biomes and there are animals, which is like, oh, well, that animal is more common to, like, South America, and this animal is common to Australia, and, like, it seems like a weird mix, right? Inside? Oh, right on. 100% Minecraft server. Yeah, they all realize they're just inside Minecraft. Oh, okay, Flossman. Okay. Cool. Well, thank you again, Bath Salts. It's good to see you. Feel free to get cozy. We're gonna do a bit more reading. Wait, didn't someone say that there were 4 chapters before part 2? We might end up reading 4 chapters tonight instead of 3. We'll see how we're feeling at the end of this chapter. Verne was both a smart guy and, of course, insanely racist. I mean, yes. Was he by the standards of the time? That's not me doubting, that's me genuinely not knowing. Like, no, not by the standards of the time. Because, like, even, like, Lovecraft, even by the standards of the time, like, his like, friends and acquaintances were like, whoa, dude, like, the black dude's still alive in this story. Well, and moreover, so it feels, hi, Anime Thigh Gap. It feels like it's meant to be a kind portrayal, but it's falling into that other kind of racism, that kind of, like, Uncle Tom's Cabin kind of caricature. Do you know what I mean? Because Neb is an active participant. They treat him like an equal. They treat him like a friend. They treat him with respect. But the way that he's characterized is so incredibly compliant and, like, servile. Like, there are times where it feels like he's being described in the same way as, like, Top, in terms of how, like, loyal he is to his master. He is a free man, he's not a slave, but he is, you know, I mean, he was technically his servant, but here on the island, that's kind of a moot point, right? Like, but it is kind of falling into that other kind of, I don't know, it's awkward, right? But it feels like possibly, and I don't know this for sure, and I'm not trying to make any excuses or whatever, this is me trying to guess, like, maybe it was, like, meant to be a kind portrayal. But at this point feels awkward, right? Yeah. Yeah, normal at the time, but racist by our standards, right. Yeah. And I think that's still important to, like, acknowledge that. Like, there have been, like, the... And also, just the way that, like, the other men will get described as, like, their jobs, like the sailor, the reporter, but for Neb, it's all, like, about his skin tone, and I'm changing some of the wording as we go along, but yeah. So he's, like, characterized by that, as opposed to what he does, right? Yeah. Okay. Oh, well, yeah, I don't know if that there's a perfect way to go about it. I'm just trying to find that balance between being honest and not completely whitewashing over it, but also keeping this, like, a cozy space where we're not, I don't know, making it as comfy as possible. In looking at some critiques, Verne was never overtly racist, more of a paternalistic, were there betters kind of mode. Okay. However, he was apparently virulently anti-Semitic, which is how you can tell by comparison his racism was a product of the time rather than personal bias. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I haven't read a lot about Verne, like, as a person, so I'm not familiar with that, but yeah. Okay. Yeah, there is definitely, like, a paternalistic vibe. His use of the word savages as well, like when encountering indigenous populations, which, I mean, there's also that other kind of paternalistic trap that people fall into, that the caricature of, like, the noble savage, right? I mean, this still happens today, where it's like, yeah, it's like, it is inherently dehumanizing, but in a way of, like, wiping out all, like, potential flaw. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's still dehumanizing. Right. H.P. Lovecraft had a cat in one of his stories that had a really bad name. That wasn't just one of his stories. His actual cat was named the N-word. His actual cat in real life. Like, that dude was crazy racist. Yeah. Okay. Alright, let's see. It will take a long time, said Pencroff. Nature has time on her side, replied the engineer. But what is the good of new continents? Asked Herbert. It seems to me that the present extent of habitable countries is enough for mankind. Now, nature does nothing in vain. Nothing in vain, indeed, replied the engineer. But let us see how we can explain the necessity of new continents in the future, and precisely in these tropical regions, occupied by these coral islands. Here is an explanation, which seems to me at least plausible. We're listening, Mr. Smith, replied Herbert. This is my idea. Scientists generally admit that someday the globe must come to an end, or rather, the animal and vegetable life will be no longer possible on account of the intense cold which will prevail. What they cannot agree upon is the cause of this cold. Some think that it will be produced by the cooling of the sun in the course of millions of years. Others by the gradual extinction of the internal fires of our own globe, which have a more decided influence than is generally supposed. I hold to this last hypothesis, based upon the fact that the moon is, without a doubt, a refrigerated planet, which is no longer habitable, although the sun continues to pour upon its surface the same amount of heat. If, then, the moon is refrigerated, it is because these internal fires, to which, like all the stellar world, it owes its origin, are entirely extinct. In short, whatever be the cause, our world will certainly someday cool, but this cooling will take place gradually, what will happen then? Why, the temperate zones, at a time more or less distant, will be no more habitable than are the polar regions now. Then human, as well as animal life, will be driven to latitudes more directly under the influence of the solar rays. An immense emigration will take place. Europe, Central Asia, and North America will, little by little, be abandoned, as well as Australasia and the lower parts of South America. Vegetation will follow the human emigration. The flora will move towards the equator at the same time with the fauna. The central parts of South America and Africa will become the inhabited continent. The Laplanders and the Samoyeds will find the climate of the polar sea on the banks of the Mediterranean. Who can tell but that at this epoch, the equatorial regions will not be too small to contain and nourish the population of the globe? Now, why should not a provident nature, in order from this time to provide a refuge for this animal and vegetable emigration, lay the foundation under the equator of a new continent, and charge these infusoria with the building of it? I have often thought of this, my friends, and I seriously believe that someday the aspect of our globe will be completely transformed, that after the upheaval of new continents, the sea will cover the old ones, and that in future ages, some Columbus will discover in the islands of Chimborazo or the Himalaya or Mount Blanc all that remains of an America, an Asia, and a Europe. Then at last these new continents, in their turn, will become uninhabitable. The heat will die out, as does the heat from a body whose soul has departed, and life will disappear from the globe, if not forever, at least for a time. Perhaps then our sphere will rest from its changes, and will prepare in death to live again under nobler conditions. It's so interesting. Yeah, going against the greenhouse effect, yeah, but it's so interesting because this is obviously a very scientific man, but he is pairing it up with Christianity, right? That the creatures that are creating these coral reefs through the biology of how they work are doing so under the direction of a god, right? But all this, my friends, is with the creator of all things. From the talking of the work to these infusoria, I have been led into too deep a scrutiny of the secrets of the future. Yeah. Yeah. My dear Cyrus, said the reporter, these theories are to me prophecies. Someday they will be accomplished. It is a secret with the Almighty, replied Smith. All this is well and good, said Pencroff, who had listened with all his ears. But will you tell me, Mr. Smith, if Lincoln Island has been constructed by these infusoria? No, replied Smith. It is of purely volcanic origin. Then it will probably disappear someday. I hope sincerely we won't be here. No, be easy, Pencroff. We will get away. In the meantime, said Spilett, let us settle ourselves as if forever. It is never worthwhile to do anything by halves. This ended the conversation. Breakfast was over, the exploration continued, and the party soon arrived at the beginning of the swampy district. It is, like, his ideas are really impressive. Yeah. We've got a few million years, Pencroff. You don't need to refrigerate the moon. It's a vinegar-preserved natural satellite. Yeah, really, really interesting. Okay. Soon arrived at the beginning of the swampy district. It was, indeed, a marsh which extended as far as the rounded side forming the southeastern termination of the island, and measuring 20 square miles. The soil was formed of a silicious clay mixed with decayed vegetation. It was covered by comfervae, rushes, sedges, and here and there by beds of herbage, thick as a velvet carpet. In many places, frozen pools glistened under the sun's rays. Neither rains nor any river swollen by a sudden increase could have produced this water. One would naturally conclude that the swamp was fed by the infiltration of water through the soil. And this was the fact. It was even to be feared that the air here during hot weather was laden with that miasma which engenders the marsh fever. Above the aquatic herbs on the surface of the stagnant waters, a swarm of birds were flying. A hunter would not have lost a single shot. Wild ducks, teal, and snipe lived there in flocks, and it was easy to approach these. Sorry, the car startled me. And it was easy to approach these fearless creatures. So thick were these birds that a charge of shot would certainly have brought down a dozen of them. But our friends had to content themselves with their bows and arrows. The slaughter was less, but the quiet arrow had the advantage of not frightening the birds, while the sound of firearms would have scattered them to every corner of the swamp. The hunters contented themselves this time with a dozen ducks, with white bodies, cinnamon-colored belts, and green heads, wings black, white, and red, and feathered beaks. These Herbert recognized as the tadorns. Top did his share well in the capture of these birds, whose name was given this swampy district. The colonists now had an abundant reserve of aquatic game. When the time should come, the only question would be how to make a proper use of them, and it was probable that several species of these birds would be, if not domesticated, at least acclimated upon the borders of the lake, which would bring them nearer to the place of consumption. About 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Smith and his companions turned their faces homewards. They crossed Tadorn's fens and recrossed the Mersey upon the ice, arriving at Granite House at 8 o'clock in the evening. Okay. Now, let me double check, because usually we stop after 3 chapters. That's what we've been doing with this book. But someone said that there's one more chapter left in the section. Yes. If we read one more chapter, then we finish part 1. What do you guys think? But we could leave it to next stream, or we could finish part 1 tonight. Another September. Hello, how are you? Hello. Artax, thank you for the 200 biddies. Let me close my door. You guys let me know in chat what you feel like. Floss, man, thank you for the 100 biddies. You say finish part 1? Thank you for the stretch redeemer, Sean. Also, hello to the other Sean over on YouTube and Northmen. My back's okay. Yeah, I'm down to read another, especially because we didn't end up reading on Tuesday, which I still feel bad about. Is there another hype train going? That's crazy. Yeah, let's finish part 1. Then we're starting on Sunday with part 2, which feels good. Ooh, sorry. Ah, so sorry. Okay. You feel sorry for these people? But you still live in the land of cheese? Wait, what? Okay. Oh, Wisconsin. Sorry, I thought we were talking about the moon still. Okay. Wisconsin, you guys are really about cheese? I feel like cheese, I think of like Europe more. And where is it in England where they roll giant cheese wheels down a hill? Yeah. Like, I feel like there's more popular variety of cheese over in Europe. That's in Ireland. I don't think it's in Ireland. I don't think it's in Ireland. I think it's in England or Wales or something, right? I'm a giant cheese wheel. You got me, Fidge. You keep a vacation home on the moon? Hell yeah. The UK cheese rolling is a legendary centuries-old extreme sport held annually on Cooper's Hill in Brockworth, Gloucestershire. Right. Competitors hurl themselves down a near vertical 180-meter slope to chase a 9-pound wheel of double Gloucester cheese, with the first racer to cross the finish line winning the cheese. And it's brutal. Like, people get hurt doing this. Crazy. Oh man. Okay. Let's read one more chapter. There's a multiplayer game on Steam about it? That's wild. That's crazy. Wisconsin has won worldwide awards for your cheese. What kind of cheese do you guys do? Like American cheddar? Or do you have a variety of cheeses? I miss cheese. Not all the time, but it'd be nice to have cheese again. If you could be even half as committed to anything as those cheese racers are for running and tumbling down that hill. I need some of that energy too, Cylindril. Yes. They don't need that much for that. Like, they should not be putting so much energy into falling down a hill after cheese. Like, think of a cheese and you likely do it. Okay, okay. I feel like you'd have to get really drunk before doing it. Not only to just, like, have the courage / stupidity to throw yourself down a hill, but the more drunk you are, the more you naturally ragdoll. And the more you naturally ragdoll, the less you'll get hurt. Fuck it, you're sending it? Do you mean going to bed? Why is my nose so itchy? If there's a fly in there, I swear to God. You don't know? Okay. Alright. That's fair. That's fair. Oh, you meant the cheese. That's also fair. Ugh. Okay. Let's read one more chapter. I'm excited. I'm excited. No, a fruit fly, like, dive bombed my nose holes. I don't think it actually went in my nose. I'm pretty sure I snorted it away, but my nose is just itchy now, so. Okay. They do. They're evil. The crazy thing is, I haven't even seen any fruit. Like, I have no. Where did it come from? I'm worried now. Because I haven't seen any fruit flies, but you know, it's like, you see one, there's probably more. So after stream, I'm gonna have to, like, inspecticate everything. Hopefully it's just a rando that came in the window or something, but. Okay. Chapter 22. The intense cold lasted until the 15th of August, the thermometer never rising above the point hitherto observed. When the atmosphere was calm, this low temperature could be easily borne, but when the wind blew, the poor fellows suffered much for want of warmer clothing. Yeah, you should have prioritized that, you idiots. Pencroff regretted that Lincoln Island, instead of harboring so many foxes and seals with no fur to speak of, did not shelter some families of bears. Foxes have fur? What are you talking about? Plus you got those freaking goats. Sheep. Bears, said he, are generally well dressed, and I would ask nothing better for the winter than the loan of their warm cloaks. But perhaps, said Neb, laughing, these bears would not consent to give you their cloak. Pencroff, these fellows are no St. Martins. Oh, we would make them, Neb. We would make them, answered Pencroff in a tone of authority. But these formidable carnivora did not dwell on the island, or if they did, they had not yet shown themselves. Herbert, Pencroff, and the reporter were constantly at work, getting traps on Prospect Plateau and on the borders of the forest. In the sailor's opinion, any animal whatever would be a prize, and rodents or carnivora, whichever these new traps should entice, would be well received at Granite House. These traps were very simple. They were pits dug in the ground and covered with branches and grass, which hid the openings. At the bottom, they placed some bait, whose odor would attract the animals. They used their discretion about the position of their traps, choosing places where numerous footprints indicated the frequent passage of quadrupeds. Every day they went to look at them, and at 3 different times during the first few days, they found in them specimens of those foxes which had been already seen on the right bank of the Mercy. Deep Fried, thanks for watching on YouTube. Really appreciate it. Yeah, reminder to Twitch people, if you're able to open up the YouTube stream, it super duper helps with watch hours, and I very much appreciate it. Alright. Pshaw, there are nothing but foxes in this part of the world, said Pencroff, as for the 3rd time he drew one of these beasts out of the pit. Good-for-nothing beasts. Stop, said Spilett. They're good for something. For what? To serve as bait to attract others. The reporter was right, and from this time the traps were baited with the dead bodies of foxes. The sailor had made snares out of the threads of curry jonc, and these snares were more profitable than the traps. It was a rare thing for a day to pass without some rabbit from the warren being captured. It was always a rabbit, but Neb knew how to vary his sauces, and his companions did not complain. However, once or twice in the 2nd week of August, the traps contained other and more useful animals than the foxes. There were some of those wild boars which had been already noticed at the north of the lake. Pencroff had no need to ask if these animals were edible. Well, that was evident from their resemblance to the hog of America and Europe. But these are not hogs, let me tell you, said Herbert. My boy, replied the sailor, handing over the trap and drawing out one of these representatives of the swine family by the little appendage which served for a tail. Do let me believe them to be hogs. Why? Because it pleases me. You're fond of hogs, then, Pencroff? I am very fond of them, replied the sailor, especially of their feet. And if any had 8 instead of 4, I would like them twice as much. These animals were peccaries, belonging to one of the 4 genera which make up that family. This particular species were the Tajassins, known by their dark color in the absence of those long fangs which belong to the others of their race. Peccaries generally live in herds, and it was likely that and it was likely that these animals abounded in the woody parts of the island. At all events, they were edible from head to foot, and Pencroff asked nothing more. Hi, wolves. Hello. Thank you so much for the resub. Thank you, wolves. 4 months now. Heck yeah. How are you doing today? About the 15th of August, the weather moderated suddenly by a change of wind to the northwest. The temperature rose several degrees higher, and the vapors accumulated in the air were soon resolved into snow. The whole island was covered with a white mantle and presented a new aspect to its inhabitants. It snowed hard for several days, and the ground was covered 2 feet deep. The wind soon rose with great violence, and from the top of Granite House they could hear the sea roaring against the reefs. At certain angles the wind made eddies in the air, and the snow, forming itself into high whirling columns, looked like those twisting water spouts which vessels attack with cannon. The hurricane, coming steadily from the northwest, spent its force on the other side of the island, and the eastern lookout of Granite House preserved it from a direct attack. Flossman, thank you for that brand new T1 sub. Oh my goodness, Flossman, thank you. Aw, thank you so much. You just woke up, wolves? Nice, nice. During the snowstorm, as terrible as those of the polar regions, neither Smith nor his companions could venture outside. They were completely housed for 5 days, from the 20th to the 25th of August. They heard the tempest roar through the Jacamar woods, which must have suffered sadly. Doubtless numbers of trees were uprooted, but Pencroff comforted himself with the reflection that there would be fewer to cut down. "The wind will be woodcutter, let it alone," said he. How fervently now the inhabitants of Granite House must have thanked heaven for having given to them this solid and impenetrable shelter. Smith had his share of their gratitude, but after all, it was nature which had hollowed out this enormous cave, and he had only discovered it. Here all were in safety. The violence of the tempest could not reach them. If they had built a house of brick and wood on Prospect Plateau, it could not have resisted the fury of this hurricane. As for the chimneys, they heard the billows strike them with such violence that they knew they must be uninhabitable. But the sea, having entirely covered their islet, beat upon them with all its force. I'm sorry, from inside their cave, they heard the sea beat against the chimneys? That's crazy. Also, again, just like, why have they not made a smokehouse to lay up stores of smoked meat, right? They're cooking all their meat fresh, right? They could be smoking their meat. That would have been an easy thing to do early on. Anyway. But here at Granite House, between these solid walls which neither wind nor water could affect, they had nothing to fear. He did say something about smoking and salting? Did he? Okay. I guess it just didn't linger on that much. Okay. Well, let's see. Maybe it'll talk about it. During this confinement, the colonists were not idle. There was plenty of wood in the storehouse, cut into planks, and little by little they completed their stock of furniture. As far as tables and chairs went, they were certainly solid enough, for the material was not spared. This furniture was a little too heavy to fulfill its essential purpose of being easily moved, but it was the pride of Neb and Pencroff, who would not have exchanged it for the handsomest buhl. A type of elaborate inlaid furniture decoration. Okay. Involves veneering furniture with tortoiseshell and then intricately inlaid with brass, pewter, and other metals in arabesque or floral designs. Okay, so it's like a fancy inlaid furniture. Yeah, how's the corn doing though? So again, look, when I'm taking moments to say like, oh, I would have done it this way or that way, this is not me saying I would be right in that choice. Obviously, these men, individually and collectively, have more knowledge and survival skills than I do. I feel like I would have started the corn in a pot and germinated it, like, inside and then transplanted it, but I don't know. Okay. Then the carpenters turned basket makers and succeeded remarkably well at this new occupation. They had discovered at the northern part of the lake a thick growth of purple osiers. Oh, it's a type of willow. Okay. So very flexible. Cool, cool. Am I saying it right? Osier. Oh, Americans pronounce it as osier. British pronunciation is osier. Osier? Okay. You would expire if you were stranded. Yeah, I don't think I would do well. I don't have a lot of survival skills. But okay. They had discovered at the northern part of the lake a thick growth of purple osiers. Before the rainy season, Pencroff and Herbert had gathered a good many of these useful shrubs, and their branches, being now well seasoned, could be used to advantage. Their first specimens were rough, but thanks to the skill and intelligence of the workmen consulting together, recalling the models they had seen and rivaling each other in their efforts, hampers and baskets of different sizes here soon added to the stock of the colony. The storehouse was filled with them, and Neb set away in special baskets his stock of pistachio nuts and roots of the dragon tree. Oh, really, Banana? That's awesome. During the last week in August, the weather changed again. The temperature fell a little, and the storm was over. The colonists at once started out. There must have been at least 2 feet of snow on the shore, but it was frozen over the top, which made it easy to walk over. Smith and his companions climbed up Prospect Plateau. What a change they beheld! The woods, which they had left in bloom, especially the part nearest to them where the conifers were plenty, were now one uniform color. Everything was white, from the top of Mount Franklin to the coast. Forests, prairie, lake, river, beach. The waters of the Mersey ran under a vault of ice, which cracked and broke with a loud noise at every change of tide. Thousands of birds, ducks and woodpeckers, flew over the surface of the lake. The rocks between which the cascade plunged to the borders of the plateau were blocked up with ice. One would have said that the water leapt out of a huge gargoyle, cut by some fantastic artist of the Renaissance. To calculate the damage done to the forest by this hurricane would be impossible until the snow had entirely disappeared. Spilett, Pencroff, and Herbert took this opportunity to look after their traps, and had hard work finding them under their bed of snow. There was danger of their falling in themselves, a humiliating thing to be caught in one's own trap. They were spared this annoyance, however, and found the traps had been untouched. Not an animal had been caught, although there were a great many footprints in the neighborhood, among others very clearly impressed marks of claws. Herbert at once classified these carnivora among the cat tribe, a circumstance which justified the engineer's belief in the existence of dangerous beasts on Lincoln Island. Doubtless these beasts dwelt in the dense forests of the far west, but driven by hunger, they had ventured as far as Prospect Plateau. Perhaps they had scented the inhabitants of Granite House. "What exactly are these carnivora?" asked Pencroff. "They're tigers," replied Herbert. "I thought those animals were only found in warm countries." "In the New World," replied the lad, "they are to be found from Mexico to the pampas of Buenos Aires. Now, as Lincoln Island is in almost the same latitude as La Plata, it is not surprising that tigers are found here." "All right, we'll be on our guard," replied Pencroff. "Fidge, okay, good night, Fidge. Thank you so much. Sleep well." In the meantime, the temperature rising, the snow began to melt. It came on to rain, and gradually the white mantle disappeared. Notwithstanding the bad weather, the colonists renewed their stock of provisions, both animal and vegetable. This necessitated excursions into the forest, and thus they discovered how many trees had been beaten down by the hurricane. The sailor and Neb pushed forward with their wagon as far as the coal deposit in order to carry back some fuel. They saw on their way that the chimney of the pottery oven had been much damaged by the storm. At least 6 feet had been blown down. They also renewed their stock of wood as well as that of coal, and the Mercy having become free once more, they employed the current to draw several loads to Granite House. It might be that the cold season was not yet over. A visit had been made to the chimneys also, and the colonists could not be sufficiently grateful that this had not been their home during the tempest. The sea had left undoubted signs of its ravages. Lashed by the fury of the wind from the offing, and rushing over Safety Island. It's supposed to be Safety Islet? Anyway. It spent its full force upon these passages, leaving them half full of sand, and the rocks thickly covered with seaweed. While Neb, Herbert, and Pencroff spent their time in hunting and renewing their supply of fuel, Smith and Spilett set to work to clear out the chimneys. They found the forge and furnaces almost unhurt, so carefully protected had they been by the banks of sand which the colonists had built around them. It was a fortunate thing that they laid in a fresh supply of fuel, for the colonists had not yet seen the end of the intense cold. It is well known that in the northern hemisphere, the month of February is noted for its low temperature. This same rule held good in the southern hemisphere, and the end of August, which is the February of North America, did not escape from this climatic law. About the 25th, after another snow and rainstorm, the wind veered to the southeast, and suddenly the cold became intense. In the engineer's opinion, a Fahrenheit thermometer would have indicated about 8 degrees below zero, and the cold was rendered more severe by a cutting wind which lasted for several days. The colonists were completely housed again, and as they were obliged to block up all their windows, only leaving one narrow opening for ventilation, the consumption of candles was considerable. In order to economize them, the colonists often contented themselves with only the light from the fire, for fuel was plenty. Once or twice some of them ventured to the beach, among the blocks of ice which were heaped up there by every fresh tide, but they soon climbed up to Granite House again. This ascent was very painful, as their hands were frostbitten by holding onto the frozen sides of the ladder. What would -8 Fahrenheit be in Celsius? There were still many leisure hours to be filled up during this long confinement, so Smith undertook another indoor occupation. The only sugar which they had had up to this time was a liquid substance, which they had procured by making deep cuts in the bark of the maple tree. They collected this liquid in jars and used it in this condition for cooking purposes. It improved with age, becoming whiter and more like a syrup in consistency. But they could do better than this, and one day Cyrus Smith announced to his companions that he was going to turn them into refiners. -13 Celsius? Yeah, so again, not like crazy cold. Cold. But if they had prioritized getting furs from all the animals that they're killing. Oh, you're getting -22? Okay. Yeah. They did not prioritize, like, stock up on furs, man. Like, all those foxes they're using for bait, skin them first. That's crazy. Anyway. They've got fire at least, yeah. Refiners? I believe that's a warm trade, said Pencroff. Very warm, replied the engineer. Then it will suit this season, answered the sailor. Refining did not necessitate a stock of complicated tools or skilled workmen. It was a very simple operation. To crystallize this liquid, they first clarified it by putting it on the fire in earthenware jars and submitting it to evaporation. Soon a scum rose to the surface, which, when it began to thicken, Neb removed carefully with a wooden ladle. With a wooden ladle, until I'm getting a little tired. Also, my lips are super chapped. Let me take care of that. Soon a scum rose to the surface, which, when it began to thicken, Neb removed carefully with a wooden ladle. This hastened the evaporation and, at the same time, prevented it from scorching. After several hours boiling over a good fire, which did as much good to the cooks as it did to the boiling liquid, it turned into a thick syrup. This syrup was poured into clay molds, which they had made beforehand, in various shapes in the kitchen furnace. The next day, the syrup hardened, forming cakes and loaves. It was sugar of a reddish color, but almost transparent and of a delicious taste. Oh, hell yeah, they've got maple sugar. The cold continued until the middle of September, and the inmates of Granite House began to find their captivity rather tedious. Almost every day they took a run outdoors, but they always soon returned. They were constantly at work over their household duties and talked while they worked. Smith instructed his companions in everything and especially explained to them the practical applications of science. The colonists had no library at their disposal, but the engineer was a book, always ready, always open at the wished-for page. A book which answered their every question, and one which they often read. Thus the time passed, and these brave men had no fear for the future. Hi, Debreen. When you say this guy, do you mean Verne or do you mean the character? However, They were all anxious for the end of their captivity, and longed to see, if not fine weather, at least a cessation of the intense cold. If they had only had warmer clothing, they would have attempted excursions to the downs and to Tadorn's fens, for game would have been easy to approach, and the hunt would assuredly have been fruitful. But Smith insisted that no one should compromise his health, as he had need of every hand, and his advice was taken. The most impatient of the prisoners, after Pencroff, was Top. The poor dog found himself in close quarters in Granite House, and ran from room to room, showing plainly the uneasiness he felt at this confinement. Smith often noticed that whenever he approached the dark well, communicating with the sea, which had its opening in the rear of the storehouse, Top whined in a most curious manner, and ran around and around the opening, which had been covered over with planks of wood. Sometimes he even tried to slip his paws under the planks, as if trying to raise them up, and yelped in a way which indicated at the same time anger and uneasiness. The engineer several times noticed this strange behavior, and wondered what there could be in the abyss to have such a peculiar effect upon this intelligent dog. Good night, Cassiax. Good night, sleep well. This well, of course, communicated with the sea. Did it then branch off into narrow passages through the rockwork of the island? Was it in communication with other caves? Did any sea monsters come into it from time to time from the bottom of these pits? The engineer did not know what to think, and strange thoughts passed through his mind. Accustomed to investigate scientific truths, he could not pardon himself for being drawn into the region of the mysterious and supernatural. But how explain why Top, the most sensible of dogs, who never lost his time in barking at the moon, should insist upon exploring this abyss with nose and ear, if there was nothing there to arouse his suspicions? Top's conduct perplexed Smith more than he cared to own to himself. However, the engineer did not mention this to anyone but Spilett, thinking it useless to worry his companions with what might be, after all, only a freak of the dog. At last, the cold spell was over. They had rain, snow squalls, hailstorms, and gales of wind, but none of these lasted long. The ice thawed, and the snow melted. The beach, plateau, banks of the Mersey, and the forest were again accessible. The return of spring rejoiced the inmates of Granite House, and they soon passed all their time in the open air, only returning to eat and sleep. They hunted a good deal during the latter part of September, which led Pencroff to make fresh demands for those firearms which he declared Smith had promised him. Smith always put him off, knowing that without a special stock of tools it would be almost impossible to make a gun which would be of any use to them. Besides, he noticed that Herbert and Spilett had become very clever archers, that all sorts of excellent game, both feathered and furred, agoutis, kangaroos, cabiais, pigeons, bustards, wild ducks, and snipe, fell under their arrows. Consequently, the firearms could wait. But the stubborn sailor did not see it in this light, and constantly reminded the engineer that he had not provided them with guns. And Gideon Spilett supported Pencroff. "If," said he, "the island contains, as we suppose, wild beasts, we must consider how to encounter and exterminate them. The time may come when this will be our first duty." But just now, it was not the question of firearms which occupied Smith's mind, but that of clothes. Milena Muse, hello, welcome, thank you for the follow. Dude, all he wants is food and guns. And you can't even say that he wants the guns for food, because they've got enough food. They're doing fine with food. Oh, thank you, Iceman. Thank you. Those which the colonists were wearing had lasted through the winter, but could not hold out till another. What they must have at any price was skins of the carnivora, or wool of the ruminants. And as mouflons, the mountain goats, were plenty, they must consider how to collect a flock of them, which they could keep for the benefit of the colony. They would also lay out a farmyard in a favorable part of the island, where they could have an enclosure for domestic animals and a poultry yard. See, if they had made other clothes sooner, they could have extended the life of the clothing that they brought with them. Right? You love finding readers in the wild? Heck yeah, well, welcome. It's good to have you here. These important projects must be carried out during the good weather. Consequently, in view of these future arrangements, it was important to undertake a reconnaissance into the unexplored parts of Lincoln Island, to wit, the high forests which extended along the right bank of the Mersey, from its mouth to the end of Serpentine Peninsula. But they must be sure of their weather, and a month must elapse before it would be worthwhile to undertake this exploration. While they were waiting impatiently, an incident occurred which redoubled their anxiety to examine the whole island. How are they washing them? Yeah, it did say, like, near the beginning of them being there that they took off their clothes and washed it, but, like, during the bad weather, no, they're just wearing the exact same outfit. Again, they could have been swapping them out and not being so fucking dirty. Yeah. Oh, Non, I'm so glad you're enjoying it. Oh, it's my pleasure. It was now the 24th of October. On this day, Pencroff went to look after his traps, which he always kept duly baited. In one of them, he found 3 animals of a sort welcome to the kitchen. It was a female peccary with her 2 little ones. Pencroff returned to Granite House, delighted with his prize, and as usual, made a great talk about it. "Now we'll have a good meal, Mr. Smith," cried he, "and you too, Mr. Spilett, must have some." "Why, I should be delighted," said the reporter. "But what is it you want me to eat?" "Sucking pig," said Pencroff. "Oh, a suckling pig! Oh, to hear you talk, one would think you'd brought back a stuffed partridge." Said Pencroff. "So you turn up your nose at my suckling pig?" "No," answered Spilett coolly, "provided one does not get too much of them." "Very well, Mr. Reporter," returned the sailor, who did not like to hear his game disparaged. "You are getting fastidious. 7 months ago, when we were cast upon this island, you would have been only too glad to have come across such game." If they were still alive, the pigs, I mean, wouldn't that have been a good start to their farm? To have the mother and 2 little babies? Like, a good start to the... They said they wanted to domesticate some animals? Yes, we are reading The Mysterious Island, which is a sequel to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, if you're familiar with that one. You'll pick it all up through hypnomania if you listen overnight enough. Aw, Ash. You're gonna pass out in here. Good night, Floral. Sleep, sleep. Well, said the reporter. Men are never satisfied. "And now," continued Pencroff, "I hope Neb will distinguish himself. Let us see. These little peccaries are only 3 months old. They will be as tender as quail. Come, Neb, I will superintend the cooking of them myself." The sailor, followed by Neb, hastened to the kitchen and was soon absorbed over the oven. The two prepared a magnificent repast. The two little peccaries, kangaroo soup, smoked ham, pistachio nuts, dragon tree wine, Oswego tea. In a word, everything of the best. But the favorite dish of all was the savory peccaries made into a stew. At 5 o'clock, dinner was served in the dining room of Granite House. The kangaroo soup smoked upon the table. It was pronounced excellent. After the soup came the peccaries, which Pencroft begged to be allowed to carve, and of which he gave huge pieces to everyone. These suckling pigs were indeed delicious, and Pencroft plied his knife and fork with intense earnestness, when suddenly a cry and an oath escaped him. "What's the matter?" said Smith. "The matter is that I have just lost a tooth," replied the sailor. "Are there pebbles in your peccaries, then?" said Spilett. "Oh, it seems so," said the sailor, taking out of his mouth the object which had cost him a grinder. It was not a pebble. It was a leaden pellet. End of chapter and end of part 1. I mean, not a bullet, but a lead pellet. Yeah. He manifested a gun through sheer will. He wants a gun so much. Shotgun, yeah. Yeah. Now, the fact that we are ending on this note, ending part 1 on this note, part 1 has been very much about just like starting to set up life. You know, part 2 is gonna get weirder. I have a feeling about it. We're really gonna get the mystery in the mysterious island in part 2, I think. Kangaroo soup. I mean, okay, I've never personally eaten kangaroo, but in Australia, don't you? It is a meat. Like, I've seen at like butcher shops or whatever getting like kangaroo burger patties and things. Like, yeah, it's like a red meat, right? It tastes like beef. Yeah. Ash, thank you for the resub. Oh my goodness, thank you. Is it more gamey than beef? How does it compare? You'd be fine if the book just kept like this and then they live. Honestly, Indy, I would too. Like, if the rest of the book was just survival and them leveling up their crafting skills. Like, I'd be hooked on it anyways. Oh, Ash, you're so sweet. Well, I love you being here as well. Thank you so much. You only had it once in a burger. It tastes identical to beef. Okay. Interesting. Because you know how, like, bison is almost identical to beef, but just, like, a little bit different, in my opinion, better. Yeah. Yes. Given long enough on this island, Smith will just invent an airplane, yeah. Yeah, I would definitely try kangaroo. Bison is somehow less gamey, but bison is so good. Damn. It's a slightly different flavor and texture. Okay, don't overcook it. Alright. Does it tend, like, do you have kangaroo steaks or is it usually ground? They're all muscle? Red Boy, thank you for the 100 biddies. I'm just thinking about, like, butcher shops in Australia. Like, kangaroos are built so different. They must have, like, different cuts, right? Than like, the ruminants. Yeah, Red Boy, we're talking about, well, the characters in the book had some kangaroo stew. You can mince it, sausages, kangabangas. Wait, that's great. So, not usually just steaks, though, not usually just straight cuts. Oh, Christ. Oh. Oh. Sorry. Oh my god, I read that. Oh, gross. Sorry, no, you're okay, Flossman. You're okay, but like, holy shit. Oh, no, that's awful. Instead of sliders, wait, I've seen kangaroo sliders before. No, I know you didn't mean anything by it, Flossman. Oh, Christ. Ew. Oh, shit. I don't even want to think. I can't think about that. That's horrible. You wonder what they're do you eat kangaroo tail? It's rich and no fat at all. Boo. Boo. I like a good fatty meat. So I like venison, but it's too lean. It's too lean. This is why I like lamb. Lamb's my favorite meat. It's so fatty. So fatty. I'm sorry, Red Boy. You had a lovely meatloaf today. You know what's crazy? I love meat. I hate meatloaf. I've never had a good meatloaf. Oh. Maybe I just haven't had a good, I've never had a meatloaf I liked. You want your bets back? Because I prefer fatty meat. It's okay, Red Boy. I would eat kangaroo. I just put a bunch of mayonnaise on it. That's how I deal with lean cuts of meat. I put a lot of mayonnaise on it. Most people's meatloaf is absolute ass. Oh yeah, well obviously it's a recipe thing, because I like meat. So obviously it's like whatever other onions or seasoning, I don't know. Gotta cook the venison with thick cut bacon, hell yeah. Oh, duck, yes, see that's what I'm talking about. Even with like chicken, fuck the white meat. I only want the fatty meat. I only like dark meat. You can't do fatty meat? Do you mean like you don't enjoy it, or is it more like your body doesn't like to digest it? Mayo solves many a food crime. Poorly chopped onions and beef with too much ketchup. Yeah, I feel like that's what I've had. Good for protein. I mean, it is meat. Yeah. I did, Thor. I did take my iron pill today. But I missed like a few days before that. Well, hello, Gelfie. Very nice to meet you too. See, I love fatty meat, but I'm not a big pork fan. Small victory, I don't know. Yeah, it's too bad I don't like pork more. And I like a little bit of gaminess, but it is possible to be too gamey. Mayo is a food crime? How dare you? Mayo is a food solution. If you can give any advice, it's this. If you don't care for meatloaf and someone you care about offers it to you, tell them, I would do anything for love, but I won't do that. You love fatty meats, but you hate pig. Yeah. I used to just like completely, I used to like not like bacon, or now at this point I sometimes enjoy bacon and I'm okay with pork sausages, but if I was like at a place with a selection of sausages, I would not choose pork. I prefer something else, like lamb or bison or something, but I'm more okay with some pork products now than I used to be. I can eat pork chops and survive it, but ham is fucking nasty. Fucking nasty. Of course, Indy. It was absolutely my pleasure. Sleep well. Thank you for hanging out. Lamb sausage. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And even with like hot dogs or smokies, like I prefer the like beef smokies over pork. Yeah. I'm just not a fan of pork. So I don't know. It just feels It grosses me out. I don't know. It grosses me out. I mean, ham, I feel like it's self-explanatory. It looks like plastic. But also, when I was a kid, I got a really bad sunburn and my skin smelled like bacon. And I think that really is just, I'm pretty sure that humans would taste like pork, and it just grosses me out. Okay, so, yeah, we will be doing a little bit more reading. Yeah, Human Meat's called Long Pork, yeah. We will be coming back to this book on Sunday night. And we will be starting part 2, which I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling is gonna get kind of weird. So, thank you so much to everyone who watched this. Thank you to everyone who watched on YouTube. Twitch, don't go anywhere. We're not ending stream, but I am ending this YouTube stream. We're gonna do some traditional ASMR. So if you are watching over on YouTube, if you want to come over to Twitch, we'd love to have you over there. Also, I will be going live on my other YouTube channel to stream that ASMR. So if you prefer to stay on YouTube, then make sure you are subbed to that other channel. But thank you so much to everyone who watched over on YouTube. It helps enormously. If you want to drop a like after I go offline, just on the VOD, that really helps. Make sure you're subbed to the channel. That is hugely helpful. Do it, YouTube. Peer pressure. You were lurking over there. Thank you, Ash. I really appreciate it. I really do. Okay. All right. Thanks, YouTube. I will see you again on Sunday. Good night, YouTube. Good night, good night. Okay. And